Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web series Very Clever Primates, taken from Reddit. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 15. Agent Brown never struck me as a violent man. Was he odd? Of course he was, especially considering his utter lack of facial or emotional displays that many of his human counterparts displayed. Yet he was always, at least, somewhat pleasant. He never struck me as a murderer. It made my scales shine a bright blue at the thought of it. Someone so pleasant to speak to was a murderer. There had to be an explanation. There had to be a reason why an ordinary unhinged fellow could find the will to kill someone with no reason other than he was ordered to do it. A warrior caste member would scoff at the idea of a caste leader ordering them to kill someone who posed a political threat. It was not how the Valan operated. It was barbaric. It was vile. It was disgusting to even think about. We didn't even kill our prisoners. They were rehabilitated until they could rejoin society. Sure, some of my species did not rehabilitate, and they were dealt with. But My train of thought was detoured as a soft chuckle erupted from the agent as he switched into a different lane as our speed picked up. At this point, I was quite used to the pull of this land shuttle, so the change in velocity did not affect me as much as it previously had. My eyes turned to look at Agent Brown, who was softly shaking his head. That man had a talent of knowing what I was thinking at any given moment. As such, I eagerly awaited his explanation behind his barbaric actions. "Did you know how many human countries there are, Scalan?" he asked, his tone neutral, his tone still that pleasant breeze that ensured me that I was safe, that I was secure. I began to loathe that tone of voice from the emotionless man. I began to hate it. I hated how well it worked on me. I hated how, even knowing that this man was a killer, that I was completely safe under his protection. "I am uncertain, Agent Brown. How many are there?" I dismissively asked, waving my hand with a roll of my eyes. I didn't care. This man was a fiend. "Just under 200, he replied, his eyes unflinching from the road ahead. "That's a lot of people to keep tabs on. Unlike you Valan, who I assume have a vast database of all citizens born under your empire." "We are not an empire," I corrected, my eyes narrowing in disgust. "We are a civilization. All of the planets we have claimed are our own were uninhabited by intelligent species." "Ah, but they were inhabited by something, weren't they? Beasts, plants, bacteria. All of them are not native species to Valar. So tell me, Scalan, is claiming a territory already inhabited by something else not something an empire would do?" He mused. I loathed him for his words and how correct they were. "Suppose we were an empire, despite how vile the idea of that is. What does that have to do with anything regarding your profession, Agent Brown?" I hissed, causing the agent to crack a smirk. "It has nothing to do with it at first glance, but with different countries come different cultures, ideals, and goals. The Valan are unified, so an empire would be a relatively natural thing to become. Why would you care about swallowing up planets under your banner if no other cultures were present to protest your own? Empires aren't all that bad, so long as they don't oppress anyone. That is where I come in," he began, his smirk fading. "I am very good at dealing with people. I pick up on languages faster than most humans. I pick up on subtle gestures, comments, and glances. I'm also very good at pretending to be someone that I am not. I know 13 different languages, excluding Valan. I am a trained cosmetologist, able to dye my own hair in a variety of different colors, and I know how to properly contour lines on my face. I am fairly androgynous, much like the Valan. I can make my voice higher or lower in pitch, and give a variety of accents to truly blend in. I'm a ghost, Scalan. They call my kind spies." He was a spy. He was an information stealer. Oh gods, I had been so foolish to not see it before. My scales dimmed to an abyssal black as the horror of it finally dawned on my foolish mind. I'd been careful to leave no trace of technology that I brought with me, but this man was a traitor and thief of knowledge by trade. He made me feel safe, complacent, and all the while he worked to worm his way into my technology. Human paranoia began to creep into my thoughts. Would this man kill me and take my technology and, with how quickly humanity worked, use it against my people? A smile slowly appearing on his lips did little to comfort me. Relax, Galan. Believe it or not, I'm not here as a spy. I'm here because I genuinely wanted to meet you, he said softly, reassuringly, hoping to ease my tension. It did little a bit to further drive me into paranoia. Skalan, if I truly wanted your technology, you would have been dead the second you and your team arrived on Earth. Your ship would have been malfunctioned and exploded. There would have been charred Valan corpses all over the news, and it would have been quite a tragedy. No evidence would have been left to show any foul play was present. Do you want to know why I could have done this? Because I was there at Alpha Camp, the base you and your soldiers went to when you first arrived. If you mean to make me feel better by telling me just what you would have done if you were on the job, you're vastly mistaken. You are a killer, Agent Brown, and you still haven't told me why you do such others than it is your job. Humans employ you to kill other humans, and now I know potentially friends in the cosmos. I sighed, looking straight ahead out of the windshield. Yep, I'm an evil son of a bitch, he replied, shrugging his shoulders. Humanity made me evil. Do you know that there are some countries out there that hate me simply because I was born here, in this country? Do you know there are some humans that would behead me simply for not believing in their political agendas? Humans are a very, very scary race. I'm a first responder to that horror. Yes, I do kill people, and I'm paid very well to do so. But there's hundreds, if not thousands of people just like me that'll feel a lot less awful about doing what we paid to do on my own countrymen. Would you not do anything to protect your own people? He asked, looking at me sincerely. My scales shifted from their grave black towards a rather neutral, flowing palette. Agent Brown had a very good point. It still painted humanity quite poorly. To the individual who has cast judgment on his entire species, but it was a good point nonetheless. He lived in a barbaric world with barbaric people. As such, barbaric actions would need to be taken. It disgusted me to think about, but a human would do absolutely anything to make sure they survived. Humans could not know failure. I see I'm making a breakthrough then. Now, while I'm not excusing my job as anything other than monstrous, all I'm saying is that I'm good at it. I am very good at what I do. I was in the room with you the entire time McCullum blabbered on about pulling himself up by his bootstraps. Blah, blah, blah. The guy needs to learn how to shut the feck up once in a while, he cackled, shaking his head. I actually gave a laugh in reply. It was very true. McCullum was very, empowered to see his philosophy recognized and agreed with. The fact that Agent Brown was in there alongside me was both haunting due to the fact that I didn't even recognize him, and comforting, knowing I didn't have to listen to that idealistic buffoon alone. McCullen's daughter is the leader of my country. She presides over everyone here as our top-level federal official. She also is a very close friend of mine, he spoke softly. For the first time since I had met this man, I thought I could see a hint of emotion on his face. She doesn't know about that. It's a very one-sided friendship. My mother was very wealthy, and we were neighbors. My mother also had a very debilitating disease. It's called HIV. It's life-threatening, but her wealth ensured good treatment, and she was able to live longer life than most with that death sentence at the time. McCullen and his daughter lived there at the time. The president, at least then, really helped my mom by not being afraid of her or hating her for that disease. He muttered, sighing. I blinked in confusion. Would she be hated for having a disease? I asked, causing the agent to laugh softly. There was a theory back then that the disease was transferred by homosexuals. To have that disease was to have a brand that you, yourself, were one. It was a social suicide at the time to be known to have it. We know better now that it is blood-borne disease, but, he paused, looking at me, and my quite red scales, his eyes quickly moved to the road, but the brilliance of my anger towards that very sentiment boiled my blood. Okay, probably not the best thing that I could have said to the person who is going to cast judgment on my species. But hey, let's chalk that up to putting out all the dirty laundry, he remarked, shrugging his shoulders once more. And before you cast judgment, remember, A lot of humans were angry about it too. That's I keep hearing over and over. A serious issue arises, but that is fine because there is an outrage over it by others of your species, I hissed, my quills standing on end, or at least trying to, as I was pressed against the chair in this land shuttle. All I'm hearing is we do bad things, but a lot of us don't like doing them, so that makes it okay. When did the bad things stop? The Valan are not a perfect species, far from it, but at least my kind actively try to better themselves. Your kind has such potential, and all I am hearing is how you are ruining that potential by being self-serving, loathsome creatures. What if I was to tell you humans, back then when you were young and your mother was dying, that my very first emotional partner was another male like myself? Would I be ostracized and hated? I bark, hisses escaping my snout with every exhale. I had never been this livid with anyone before, but knowing a species use something like a disease to outright hate people who chose their own sex as their partners, well, I can only tolerate so much foolishness. Agent Brown nodded after I spoke my mind. You should be angry about it. You should be angry about what a lot of us do. We need the push. Agent Brown spoke in a mournful tone. It's why I think that we should stay on this rock. It's why I think your people are far too beautiful for us. I'm talking to someone who lives in a utopia. By all human accounts, you Valan don't need or want for anything. Humanity, we're primitive, I interrupted. You're all very, very primitive, yes, Agent Brown muttered, putting off the highway, driving towards a large building in the distance, which was surrounded by other buildings of similar make. The area was much more beautiful and well-designed than the one that surrounded the hospital. Flags of all different colors rose into the skies, much larger in scale compared to the ones on the housing buildings. Agent Brown sighed as he approached what I assumed was our destination, where I would give my thoughts on their species. My eyes narrowed as I looked at my destiny, eager to be free of this place, of this planet. Scalan, he spoke softly, with purpose, the hardened shell he wore on his face easing, and, for the first time, I met him. I saw a human on that face. Despite all of that hatred and fear, President McCullen still came over to keep my mother company. She still bought me presents for Christmas, still saw my mother as a human when everyone else, at least in secret, judged her for something she didn't do. She had a bad blood transfusion, but everyone thought she caught it from being sexually dirty. Yeah, they thought homosexuality was a dirty act, and a lot of people still do. But not President Deborah McCullen. When my mom and I were very alone, Debbie was there to say hi. Then it was Senator McCullen, and finally, President. The leader of this country of misfits and hate-filled bigots is a loving, caring woman who made my childhood that much better. My scales dimmed, the red changing into flowing colors of thought. He began to pull up what I assumed was a security checkpoint. A few guards moved towards the land shuttle. Please, don't judge us for the actions of the loud. Their voices overpower the good in us. For every General McCullum, there are 3 Dr. Morhamheims. Just, promise me that you'll remember that when you're talking to their leaders, okay? He begged, his voice shaking. He was, showing fear. Yes, that was it. It was fear. It was a fear I did not expect from the agent. My eyes closed, and he slowly slid down the window on his side of the land shuttle. I began to mutter to myself under my breath, if there are guards out there, if Scar, Sko, and La are listening to me right now, please help me. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. I hope you all have a fantastic one. Cheers. I'd just like to thank the T5 members and Patreons. Alithia, Barkey, Fudic Yol, Meridian 117, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Albard and Guster, Lord Ashrakull, and White Van 420.